And so, looking at the video and the evidence over this time and following the trial from start to finish, they got it right. I mean, and you sit back and you don't necessarily celebrate it because it's not over and done with. I mean, you still got a lot more work to be done. And so you just say, okay, this is the start of something that I think could help change people's mindsets about everything. It doesn't bring George Floyd back. It does not allow him and his friends and family to hug him, kiss him, to celebrate with him for many things and accomplishments in his life. It just simply helps us on the outside understand that there's a lot more work to be done. This is just starting the beginning.
Indeed. It could have been, Key's mentioning it could have been the start. In just a moment, I'm going to play you some powerful audio about why it could have been the end in some ways for the state of Minnesota as they braced for that verdict yesterday. But Alyssa, we'll get your thoughts and then we'll weigh in on some sports organizations and what it really feels like to be there in Minnesota as you join us this morning from Charlotte.
Yeah, guys, I mean, it's hard, I'm sure, as you both have been talking about all morning, to put all your thoughts into a quick thought here on radio. I mean, I spent yesterday just kind of reflecting on what the last year has been like, watching, especially on social media, my friends who identify with this tragedy so much more than I ever can be in so much pain because they were unsure that the right thing was going to be done yesterday. As Key said, the right thing was done yesterday with the verdict, and that I think is a sigh of relief, but there's still so much work to be done and so much further yet to go. It's such a sad situation all around, and I can say for myself, it's completely changed the way I go about every day as far as an awareness perspective, somebody who will never understand what it is like to be in that situation. But the last year has been so eye-opening, I think, for so many people. And if yesterday gave anybody a little bit of hope, then it's a great ending to a really tragic story.
Yeah, that's a great instructive point you bring, Alyssa, to the table. And I wanted to just double down on something that she said, which was the fact that even though, as Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said, believe your eyes. When you watch that video that was recorded by 17-year-old Darnella Frazier and you watch it for, as we all know, 9 minutes and 29 seconds, it seems open and shut. It seems as though guilty would be the only obvious verdict. But in fact, guilty was not the expected verdict and certainly wasn't the odds-on percentage-wise chance to be the verdict, which might say everything in and of itself on where we are. Key, obviously, we've gone through a lot here in the last year, and Alyssa has the poll marker there of a year because it was a year next month, Memorial Day, when this horrible incident happened. So much has happened in the world of sports and athletes that forever and a day just felt as though they couldn't hold it back anymore. You know, it's funny. We often say all we ever want from our athletes is it, and we wonder why they're being so authentic and honest. But this was one of those moments where I just sort of feel like it just happened. It happened organically, and it's probably going to continue to happen. Once again, we'll get into what certain teams have said here in just a moment, but how would you reflect here on the last year, considering we're coming upon the 1-year anniversary of the moment itself?
Well, it's been a lot, obviously, clearly, not just dealing with all these different tragedies, but you're dealing with the pandemic, and you whether it's Breonna Taylor or Floyd or anything that has gone on, it's just, you watch sports come to a halt. You watch the pandemic take lives. And so you sit back and you just say to yourself, when is all this going to end? Like, when is it going to finally end? And, you watch the bubble. You watch the teams decided to take a step back for a day, then go back. You've watched certain owners of sports groups put their foot in their mouths. I mean, it's just been one of those deals. It's been month after month after month after month. And now we're here where we got this verdict yesterday. But like I said before, we still got a lot of work to do moving forward. And as time goes on, I'm sure policies will change. We've watched plenty of unrest here over the last year. We watched an election that turned into something just wild. I mean, it's just been
more ammunition than anybody to go up and get a quarterback next year if you need to.
And I think when you look at it, Jalen Rigger is an incomplete, like you said, Mike, based on injuries, quarterback problems, just everything that went on in Philadelphia a year ago. I wouldn't have taken him over Jefferson. There's no way. I felt like Jefferson was probably the best receiver in the draft last year. When you look at it, though, there's plenty of receivers in this year's draft. It's pretty deep. You don't have to take a guy in the first round to be successful. I point to my nephew of the New Orleans Saints and Michael Thomas. He's been one of the most productive receivers, the most productive receiver since coming into the league. So when you look at it, guys in the second and the third round fill the roster up a little bit for you. You can make plays with those sort of guys. Get a position that you certainly need to help out Jalen Hurts, and it's not the receiver spot.
Indeed. Dave's in Western New York. He's on ESPN Radio this morning. Ask the GM anything.
Hey, good morning, guys. How's it going? Big Tampa Bay Bucks fan here in Bills country, and I just want to know, everyone's talking about the top 10 picks. What are the champs going to do with the last pick of the draft?
Dave, that's a really interesting question. I think if you look at what Ozzie Newsome did in one of the last acts as the general manager of the Baltimore Ravens at 32 a couple years ago, he took Lamar Jackson, which was a great pick for a number of reasons. Lamar turned out to be the league MVP. In addition, they got 5 years because in the first round, you have that fifth-year option. I think the Buccaneers should take a quarterback at 32, just like the Ravens did. So whoever that sixth quarterback is, maybe it's Davis Mills of Stanford, maybe it's Kyle Trask of Florida, Kellen Mond of Texas A&M. There's that next group after that top five. And if you think about from a Buccaneer standpoint, this gets set up perfectly, which is you have Tom Brady, presumably for this year, maybe one more, and now you have somebody behind him learning from the greatest of all time, and you have him for 5 years. So if I'm Tampa Bay, as good as they did this offseason, let's think about the future and get your quarterback who's the heir apparent to Tom Brady.
And I think you're right, Mike, but what I would look at, too, if I was running the deal, who wants to get at 32? Let me trade back, because as these quarterbacks start to slide down, when you still have that second wave of guys there, I could probably pluck one of them in the second round, and I could pick up some extra draft capital to continue to build the roster.
Just a reminder, Russell Wilson, third round, Dak Prescott, fourth round. You may have heard Tom Brady was drafted in the sixth round. Tibor in New Jersey, ask the GM anything.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Big fan of yours, lifelong Jet fan. Big question. We all know that the Jets offensive line is awful, except for Mekhi Becton. They need guard. They need tackle on the right side. Who will be left in the draft with their second and third pick, and will they fill those spots with offensive linemen?
Yeah, thanks, Tibor. I totally agree with you. George Fant was a guy that really didn't work out for them last year. Becton, to me, looks like a great player. I think from a Jet perspective, it really sets up well from this standpoint. Obviously, they take the quarterback with the second pick. With their second first-round pick, there could be someone like Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech, who I love. I think in other years, we'd be talking about the top 10, but because of Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater, some of these receivers going, I think there's going to be a really good tackle there. I like Sam Kazi from Texas, but to me, Christian Darrisaw, I think, has a chance to be an elite player. If he's a bookend with Mekhi Becton with a young quarterback, at least now foundationally, you have a really good group of young players to build off of.
The Jets need so much stuff, Mike. And when you get into certain parts of the draft for them, outside of the second, maybe the outside of that second first